One nation appears more than any other as both the epitome of human rebellion and God's instrument of judgment. From the plains of Shinar to the visions of Revelation, Babylon represents humanity's defiant attempt to build without God, yet paradoxically becomes the tool God uses to refine his people. This is the shocking story of how the Almighty transforms rebellion into redemption. Babylon's story begins in Genesis 11 with humanity's first organized rebellion. Genesis 11:4 reveals their hearts. Come, let us build for ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, that we may make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of all the earth. Notice the language. Let us build for ourselves, that we may make a name. Everything centered on human achievement, human glory, human unity without God. This wasn't just architecture. It was theological rebellion. God's response in Genesis 11:7 is telling, "Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech." The very unity they sought without God became their undoing. Babel, which means confusion, became Babylon. And from that moment, this location represented humanity saying, "We don't need God." Centuries later, Babylon emerged as a world empire under Nebuchadnezzar. But here's what's stunning. God called Babylon his servant. Jeremiah 25:9 records God's words. "I will summon all the families of the north, declares the Lord, and I will send for my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and I will bring them against this land, against its residents, and against all the surrounding nations." Read that again. My servant. God chose the nation born from rebellion to discipline his own people. Why? Because Judah had violated the covenant, embraced idolatry, and rejected repeated warnings. Jeremiah 27:6-7 explains God's perspective. "So now I have placed all these lands under the authority of my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. I have even given him dominion over the beasts of the field. All nations will serve him and his son and grandson until the time of his own land comes." Babylon wasn't acting alone, they were fulfilling God's predetermined plan. The Babylonian exile wasn't punishment for punishment's sake. It was purification. For 70 years, God's people lived in the heart of paganism, and something remarkable happened. They never worshipped idols again. Think about that. Before Babylon, Israel constantly chased false gods. After Babylon, idolatry was eradicated from Jewish culture. The exile that seemed like judgment became the cure for their chronic spiritual disease. But God didn't abandon his people there. Daniel 1-2 contains a critical detail. The Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the house of God. Notice, the Lord gave. God was in control, even in captivity. Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's stories reveal God's purpose to demonstrate his supremacy in the heart of human pride. When Nebuchadnezzar demanded worship of his golden image, God's people refused, and Daniel 3:28-9 records the pagan king's response. "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for there is no other God who can deliver like this." The empire of human pride became the stage for divine glory. Through Daniel, God revealed that Babylon was just the first of 4 great empires. Daniel 2:37-8 records Daniel's words to Nebuchadnezzar. "O king, you are the King of kings. The God of heaven has given you sovereignty, power, strength, and glory. You are that head of gold." But Daniel 2:44 reveals the endgame. "In the days of those kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will it be left to another people. It will shatter all these kingdoms and bring them to an end, but will itself stand forever." Babylon was powerful, but temporary. God's kingdom is eternal. Human empires rise and fall according to divine timetable. Babylon's fall came exactly as prophesied. Isaiah 13:19 declared, And Babylon, the jewel of the kingdoms, the glory of the pride of the Chaldeans, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. Daniel 5 records the final night. Belshazzar threw a feast using the sacred vessels from God's temple, the ultimate act of blasphemy. Then came the writing on the wall. Min, Tekel, Upharsin. Daniel 5:26-28 interpreted. God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. You have been weighed on the scales and found deficient. Your kingdom has been divided and given over to the Medes and Persians. That very night, Babylon fell. The empire that God used to discipline his people was itself judged for its pride. Jeremiah 50-24 captures God's perspective. I laid a snare for you, and you were caught, O Babylon, but you did not realize it. You were found and captured because you challenged the Lord. In Revelation, Babylon becomes symbolic of all human systems that oppose God. Revelation 18:2 announces, Fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a lair for demons. But Revelation 18:4 also contains a call. Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins or contract any of her plagues. God still rescues his people from Babylon's influence. Babylon teaches us that God uses even rebellious nations to accomplish his purposes. The same empire born from defiance became his refining tool. The same power that scattered humanity at Babel gathered God's people into purity through exile. For believers living under oppressive systems today, Babylon's message is clear. Your circumstances are under divine control. Your suffering has redemptive purpose, and every empire, no matter how powerful, answers to the King of Kings. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching.